check it again, or revive it.
Sure. Yep. Okay, good afternoon. Just calling the Westborough Board of Selectmen emergency meeting to order. We do have our attorney from KP Law on the phone here. Lauren, do you want to kind of give us a little update on what we're going to propose? So folks know that this is going to be a discussion and potential vote on the Board of Selectmen to request that the governor file special legislation on behalf of the town, requesting expedited approval to postpone the annual town election.
Absolutely, thank you. Many towns, about 35, have elections in the coming months, and most are doing what you're doing right now, which is, I'll say it in the most positive way, obsessing about what to do about town elections, town meetings, and the like. So with respect to elections, there's no particular statutory mechanism allowing for delay or postponement of an election. Nevertheless, under the circumstances, number one, the courts are really closed to most business if possible, and number two, because there's so many of you in a similar boat, we have proposed language for a governor's bill, which is a bill that's filed by the governor at the request of the city or town, or of the town in this case. It has to be approved by 2/3 of the houses, both houses of the legislature, but typically these are acted on very quickly. I have vetted this form with the director of the state elections division, and she's comfortable with it. That's never an official position, but that's my understanding. And to the extent that we are able to predict anything, I anticipate that the governor may file legislation similar in nature to be applicable to all towns in this position. Essentially, what the special act would do, and please stop me at any time, it's hard to read the room when you're not there. Essentially what it would do is it would press pause on your election. So it would stop things where it is today, and it would pick it back up when you press unpause, and pressing unpause would be a day, 20 days prior to the date the board reschedules the postponed election.
Can you say that again?
The legislation, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's 20 days, the start, I think the question came in, it stops today, it would start 20 days prior to when we want the actual town election date to be. Yes,
it would be 20 days. And so the idea is that the board would make the public health assessment, public safety assessment, with Board of Health, with police and fire, in light of any of the conditions that we're aware of at that time. And if the board decides that it's safe to proceed, the board would essentially say, today we're going to reschedule that postponed election. It's going to be held 20 days or more from today. Absentee balloting can be ongoing during the process. So if people want to vote by absentee, they can do that now. If they want to wait, they can do that. You're going to use all the same materials with the current dates on them. And the other thing that we've done to try and provide some flexibility is to come up with essentially a modified voting or early voting by mail procedure where anyone can vote by absentee ballot or by early voting ballot, regardless of the reason, so that we encourage people to participate who don't want to have to choose between coming out and voting in the election. And that would all be administered through the clerk's office. It would not have any on-site component like it does with early voting for the state elections. It would be a modified early voting by mail only. And that 20 days also gives the different campaigns the ability to kind of rev up their campaigns and get notice out to their voters. And the other benefit is that, as the town clerk will no doubt tell you, running an election is more than just the clerk. It requires the help of DPW and sometimes school principals, et cetera. And so the idea is this 20 days would start that clock, but in a way that the clerk would still have time to run an election.
So,
Great. Thank you, Lauren. I have a question for one of my board members here.
so to be clear, we were, I just want to reiterate what you just said. So I think today was, at noon was supposed to be our deadline for early voting. If we adopt this, early voting continues, people keep sending in their ballots,
Not early voting, but absentee ballots.
but we can still do that, right?
Correct. From what I heard,
Yes.
is absentee ballots can continue now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lauren,
couldn't hear that.
I think what you said, we're using regular ballots still with the date, which was tomorrow's date on it. That all remains the same?
Yes, and what we will do is we will have, if for the early voting, and the idea is to be able to use the resources you have, we will literally cross out a, absentee ballot, and we will put on there just the initials EV. And so that's how we'll deal with early voting. It won't be available, early voting won't be available until 20 days before, so the date that you guys call for that postponed election. Absentee ballots can keep coming in, and they'll be saved and used, and just like they would if the election were, in a week.
Wait, sorry, just 1 second. So just because I'm a little bit confused here, Lauren, but absentee ballots are different than the election ballots.
Yes, they have a
Yeah,
different,
if I may just clarify that, there is under, I'm sorry, you guys, that my dog is making noise. Working from home has its challenges.
Yes.
So, under absentee voting, there's a constitutional prohibition, and that constitutional prohibition says there are 3 reasons that you can vote by absentee ballot. The first reason is because your religion prevents you. The second reason is because you're going to be out of the city or town on the day of the election. And the third reason is that you're physically incapable of getting there because of illness. So, to ensure that anyone who wants to vote early is able to, we need to provide an early voting by mail mechanism. And that is different than an absentee ballot. Most voters won't care about this one way or another. But to the extent that we know we're asking voters to do something, which is we're asking them to vote early, or we're telling them they can vote early, we want to do it in a way that is presumptively legal than presumptively illegal.
So just to be clear, but Lauren, I apologize for asking these questions, but I just want to make sure we're absolutely clear. The early voting you're talking about doesn't begin occurring until that 20 days prior to when we call the date of the next election. Is that accurate?
That's correct. That early voting, which is voting early for anyone, would start on the 20th day before the election. But people right now, if they are comfortable voting, under any of those 3 constitutional provisions, have the ability to do so. They could request an absentee ballot, and it could be sent out, and if it's returned, it'll be noted in the system just like always, and maintained without being opened until processed at the polls on election day.
Okay.
Okay, so if they ask for if they want to early vote through the mail, the only ballots other than absentees are the regular ballots, so those would have...
Right, no, they'll early vote on absentee ballots. You will cross off absentee ballot, and you will write onto it EV.
Okay, but we don't have a lot of those. I mean,
Then you will use regular municipal election ballots, and if you need additional election ballots to be printed, you can get them. They'll look exactly like they look right now.
that'll say absentee on them. We're not going to use the 5,000 regular ballots at all?
So the idea is we don't want you to waste anything that you already have. We want you to be able to use all of the resources you've already invested, and we want to make it simple for you to get ballots out to people. So just like at an election, if you were to, in a regular election cycle, if you were to run out of absentee ballots, you would write the word absentee onto an official ballot. And in this situation, it will be the same, except if someone's asking for an early voting ballot, you'll write EV onto it.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll use the 5,000 we already have.
But,
Yes.
so if I want to vote on Wednesday, right? If I go to Wendy and say, I want to vote, so what will she give me? Will she give me?
Absentee.
Absentee, right? And then if
Absentee, you can't early vote until 20 days prior.
prior, so I can just, it
But you
really
have
doesn't
to-
matter.
But you have to satisfy one of those 3 legal rights of why you can vote absentee.
Right, and you sign that, I'm sorry to just jump right in, but you sign that under the penalties of perjury. So if you're comfortable signing that, certainly you can vote by absentee. If you're not comfortable signing that, but you don't want to go to the polls, you can wait until the date of the postponed election is given and called, and then there will be early voting by mail-only ballots available for anyone who wants one.
Yes. So just.
So no one will be penalized who's already cast a ballot through an absentee ballot process. Anyone who wants to and qualifies for absentee ballot voting can continue to ask for it. And to the extent that, when the election, the postponed election is rescheduled, early voting ballots will be available for anyone who wants one.
Great. And just, this probably goes unsaid, but since we had numerous people do absentee votes with the expectation that the election was on the 17th, because it's moved, when they made their election, for example, that they were ill or that they were going to be out of town, that would still hold because
Yes,
they did it
any
expecting the 17th to be that date.
Absolutely. And let me be clear about this. The clerk does not, when someone comes in to vote by absentee ballot, confirm whether they're eligible to vote by absentee ballot. They sign an affidavit under the penalty of perjury that says that they are eligible. We're not looking to upend any of the normal procedures. All we're trying to do is to add to it, I'll put it in quotes, like no-fault early voting, meaning it doesn't matter what your reason is. It could just be that you don't want to go to town hall, or to a school. That's a good enough reason.
Okay.
You don't need to explain your reason. You just ask for an early voting ballot and you get it.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. So we're protecting the rights of voters today. The other thing that we're doing in the special act as it's drafted is we're changing the last day to register to vote for the election so that no one who is not currently registered but who would be able to vote in this next election is able to. So we're saying we're going to press the unpause button at 20 days at least, and at 10 days before, that will be the date on which it's the last day to register to vote. So anyone who registers between now and 10 days before the rescheduled election will also be eligible to vote in the postponed election.
You got that, Wendy?
Yep.
I
And-
hope, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Wendy, other questions? So I'm talking to Wendy Mickle, our town clerk, but anything?
Certainly.
No, I think so we're going to unpause it 20 days before the election.
Yep.
Okay.
No later than 20 days before the election.
Oh, right, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And for now, and basically, and we're unpausing from today, if we vote, the motion that I'll make in a minute, if we vote that, the folks that are registering to vote,
Yep.
or have registered to vote prior to this, but we're in the 10-day window before the 17th, will now be eligible to vote whenever that date comes up, and will, until 10 days
Yes.
prior to that election.
Yes.
That's right. So under state law, without a special act of any sort, it's a 20-day voter registration cutoff. So typically, anyone who wasn't registered 20 days from before the date of your election isn't eligible to cast a ballot in a local election. What we're doing here is we're saying because of the circumstances, it would be unfair if we're pausing the election to not let other people who registered to vote in the meantime and who would otherwise be able to vote in the town election to be able to do that. And so you guys probably are familiar with a special town meeting. There's a 10-day voter registration window as well instead of a 20-day. So we're trying to kind of be a little more nimble with our voter registration ability so that the most people can be included in the election process.
Perfect, thank you. Selectman Hashman, you had a question?
Yeah, so my first question is, listening to all these things, I'm a little jumbled, so I'm hoping that we can have a simple protocol that Wendy can get out, that, lays out what needs to happen. And the second, so that's the first thing I would recommend, that it be very clearly written and posted and sent out via email. That's one. The second is, with regards to this protocol that we will be putting out, is there some way of making sure that the state election officials sign off on it, or is that going to have to wait till the governor bill is, submitted? I mean, I don't want us to be doing all this work and putting all this mechanism in place and then find out that the state election officials are not happy with what we're doing. Am I making sense?
Well, may I respond to that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, I mean, unfortunately, because of the way that circumstances are with this, the response to this COVID-19, we are all kind of reacting to the extent that we have to address some of these issues. So, as I said, I vetted this with the Secretary of State's office, and I believe that, that they are going to be supportive of it in the form that it's in. To the extent that you all request the filing of a governor's bill today and decide to postpone your election in accordance with the text of that bill, my expectation is that if any general law is passed or special law that's applicable to all municipalities, that it will track what we have already done here, and so there won't be any discord. Is it possible they could add some procedural requirement, like you have to give notice a week before the vote or something like that? Maybe, but I don't think that you will have gone down a road that is unhelpful or unnecessary.
Great, thank you.
So if we vote on this now, are we able to announce that we're postponing the elections, or do we have to wait until we get confirmation that the governor's bill has been filed and approved by the legislature?
If I'm happy to jump in on that. To the extent that normally, if you told me we have an election tomorrow, we have an election Wednesday, and we want to cancel it, I would say we have to go to court to do that, because there's no mechanism under state law that actually permits that. Under the current scenario, though, there simply isn't a mechanism to get into a court fast enough. Although, if we could find one that was open, and we write the word COVID-19 and election, I have no doubt that the court would approve it. But in similar situations that require immediate action, we have, for example, told town clerks that they can put an office on the ballot as long as the board has filed special legislation requesting the same, even if it's past a deadline. In this circumstance, the work that it takes to get a court order involves sending an attorney into court. It involves having a staff person be available to answer any questions. It involves finding a court that will hear it, and then them acting on it, which all reduces the amount of time that we have to tell the public what we're doing. So even though and those of you that know me know I am typically very conservative, so even though the the statutory framework doesn't permit this automatically, in my view, requesting that the governor file legislation as your first vote, and then voting to postpone the election as your second vote in accordance with the text of the special legislation, that's sufficient under the current circumstances. And I would recommend, and I think the selectman that indicated earlier, this communication to the public is essential. I would send out an E911. I would post on the website. I would notify any local papers. I would, if you guys do any kind of phone chains or anything like that, I'd notify the poll workers and try to spread the word. Those of you that are on social media, I would suggest sending it out on social media. This is what the board has done in order to protect the public health and safety, and in light of this rapidly changing situation involving a response to COVID-19. And that way, we're on it right now. Everybody knows we've taken as much of an aggressive step as we can, a proactive step to prevent people from coming out. And we're relieving the concerns of especially the most vulnerable portions of the population that right now think they have to choose between protecting their health and coming out to the election.
Okay, thank you. And I also, it seems to me as the layperson that the governor's order about gatherings of 25 or more people would actually preclude us from opening a polling station where there would be more than 25 people.
I think we absolutely have that to lean on as well. And when we first started talking about this, it was a 250 person number, but now that it's down to 25, that's additional, it's additional kind of backup for making a decision of this nature.
Yeah, knowing that we have
I mean,
40
one could argue
poll
the order
workers.
prevents it, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that knowing that we have 40 poll workers that would need to be there to staff the election, that's over 25, and I think it's, as you said, it's just more backing for what we're looking to do here, and I think it is,
Yep.
on our side, the right thing to do, and I think, Lauren, what you just said at the end of really about protecting the ability for all registered voters to vote and not have to choose between their health and going to the polling places tomorrow just makes all the sense in the world. And I think that, personally, I think that we need to do that to protect them, but also to protect our poll workers, many of them being seniors as well. So I just think this, while it's kind of uncharted territory here, I think we've got enough advice from our council. I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay, is there a motion?
So do that. I'll make the motion here, and Lauren, if this has come from you guys at KP Law, but if I miss something here, please feel free to correct. But
I will, thank you.
yep. So I move that due to the rapidly evolving public health concerns associated with novel coronavirus COVID-19, the board vote to immediately request the governor to file emergency legislation on behalf of the town, a so-called governor's bill, seeking authorization to delay and reschedule the annual town election to a date up to and including June 30th, 2020, to be determined by the Board of Selectmen in consultation with the Town Clerk, Board of Health, and other public safety personnel, and provided further that all nominations, ballot preparation, absentee voting, and the like be ratified, validated, and confirmed as though was undertaken in regard to the rescheduled election date. And further, if such legislation is not passed prior to March 17, 2020, to ratify, validate, and confirm the board's vote to postpone the 2020 annual town election.
Can I?
Second?
Seconded. Lauren, anything missed there or anything?
Nope. The only thing is you might want to ask for the chair to be authorized to sign a letter to the governor explaining these reasons.
Okay, I'll move that we authorize the chair to sign a letter on behalf of the board. Okay. Yes, question?
I'm sorry to be so particular, but
No.
since this is a legal thing, it says the first line is the virus. It's not the virus. The disease is COVID-19. The virus is named something else. So the risk of transmission of COVID-19 disease is what's driving us to postpone. Am I making sense? You said virus.
Certainly.
It says with novel coronavirus.
Novel coronavirus. Okay, all right, okay.
Yep.
And then I would just, are we having a discussion about
Yes,
this?
please.
So I was just going to tell the town, as somebody that has gone through several postponed elections and dictatorships and coup d'etats, to even consider postponing an election is a big deal. But these are different times, and as you can see from the discussion that we've had with our chair and with our lawyers, at all times, the voting rights of this town and your voting rights are being protected. Your public health is being protected, and that this government is continuing to function no matter what stress it is under. So I'm supportive of this.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I mean, this is something, to the public, we don't take this lightly. We tried. I mean, this is something, as you know, from our meeting even last Thursday, this is
I actually supported.
Yes.
I supported holding the election, and now things are different.
things are much different, and as you said, even then it was fluid, but I think this is the right action for us to take at this time. Other comments from the board? Anybody in the audience? Yes, Town Clerk.
Can Lauren provide language for posting of the postponement? You know, the exact language that we should use when we post this?
Lauren, I don't know if you heard that, but the Town Clerk was asking about exact language that we should post out to the public, whatever, when we're, to let them know that we're postponing the election?
I can provide that, yes.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Perfect. I think to that point, as Attorney Goldberg said, I think getting it out to all of our mediums that we have, is the sign still out in the Rotary
Yeah.
that we can, if we can get that updated by the DPW or however that works?
And a
Yep,
code-
it's,
code
it
red.
should be there right now.
And looking at it to
We
the
can get it changed.
fire chief, whether we can post a code red with this, once we get the language and put that out. Awesome. Lee, did you have a question?
No, I'm okay with your discussion so far. I'm in agreement. And when you vote, will you please raise your hands so I know that you're actually voting? Because the sync on the TV is different than what I'm hearing on
Yeah,
the
well,
phone.
what I'll do is a roll call, since we're doing this and you're participating remotely, I'm gonna do this via roll call vote. I think that's the rules that we have in place for that, so that's the way we'll act, as opposed
Thank you.
to raising hands. Okay, anything else from the board? Christie, anything from your side?
So just one other thing, so this, our lawyers will file this on behalf of us today or something with the governor? Am I getting this correct? Is that what's gonna happen next?
So, if I may?
Yes, please.
Sure, okay. What we'll do is, once you sign it, we would ask that you reach out immediately, and also, there is a place for the town clerk to sign it as well. I think it's important for the legislature to understand that this is not Board of Selectmen making a decision against what the town clerk wants. I think you add that, and then my suggestion would be that Christie or the chair reach out immediately to your state representative and state senator. You can email or PDF it over to them, have them sign it, and then hand deliver it to the governor's office.
Yep, no, appreciate that. We have reached out prior to this to the legislators, letting them know that this potentially or most likely was coming, so they are aware of it and have offered to help with it too, so we will do that.
Great. Getting them to sign off is really useful, and frankly, ultimately, this is a political process, so, whatever they're able to do, that's terrific.
Perfect. Yep.
Did I understand the attorney to say that the state rep or senator should hand deliver it to the governor?
Well,
I mean, is that what I just heard?
Maybe that was a dated thing to say. They can PDF it. The
Well-
idea being, if it comes from the state rep or the state senator, it's usually better received.
Yeah, no, versus us sending it to, versus our town manager sending it. I just want to be clear as to what that process, or it's multiple, but I also
Yep.
don't want to overwhelm an already stressed system.
So the draft that we received from KP Law has spots for the chair to sign, the town clerk to sign, and then also the reps and the senator. So we would send it to them, they would sign it, and then they would send it on for us. Right,
Perfect.
Lauren?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And typically that, especially under the circumstances, I just can't imagine there being any issue whatsoever. Again, I think the most important thing in this case is being in touch with the voters and letting them know that's the plan, so that people can relax a little bit, and then, we'll follow through the procedures to get done what needs to get done. In the actual legislation itself that we drafted, we have a line that kind of echoes what was in the vote, which is, if this legislation isn't passed immediately, then the board's decision to delay or postpone is ratified, validated, and confirmed as though the act had been in place prior thereto. So this is not something the legislature has never seen before, would be unfamiliar with.
Okay.
And sorry, just one other thing. I would, while I'm fully supportive and I'm completely okay with the chair signing this legislation, I think it would be helpful to have a separate document that the board can then sign to support. I mean, I know we're going to be taking a roll call vote, but is it worthwhile having a separate document that all 5 members of the board sign, saying, hey, we we are on board with this?
I can, although, it's gonna be in our minutes, the vote that
Okay.
you're authorizing your vote,
Okay,
Chair, but
okay.
really, I'm signing on behalf of the board as a vote of the full board.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, as I said, I'd call for a roll call vote, so, those in favor, and I'll start with you, Selectman Hashmi.
Hashmi, yes.
Johnson, yes?
Edinburgh, yes?
Emery, yes.
And Emery, I heard Emery yes on the phone. Great, so thank you. So that was the piece that we called here. I did have and Laura, I think we're all set.
Mr. Chair, you know what, just to kind of cross the Ts and dot the Is, I think it would be useful if someone were to make a motion to postpone the date of the annual town election in accordance with the special legislation authorized to be filed with the governor.
I can do that.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to postpone the annual town election in accordance with the special legislation being filed with the governor's office.
Any questions on that one? If not, a roll call vote on that one.
Hashmi, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Edinburgh, yes?
Emery, yes.
So it's 5-0 on that one as well. Lauren, thank you very much for your help with
Okay.
this prior, but also for this meeting, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Okay, well, good luck, everyone, and as my mother used to say on my way out the door, be smart and make good choices, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Same to you.
There. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Just real quick, so for folks watching, the town moderator had asked to say a couple of words. We will be, as an FYI, as he's walking up, we will be, we have a posted meeting tomorrow night. We'll be talking further about actions to take in regards to these public health concerns, but the town moderator, John Arnold, had asked to say a couple of words.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. You have a much better reach with your meetings on television, things than I do, so I just wanted to take a few moments to say these are obviously extraordinary times. Given the action that the selectmen have just taken, and given that Governor Baker proposed a legislative package that's likely going to give greater latitude for posting town meeting, I think it's safe to say that the March 28th town meeting will be postponed. I'm going to hold off on any sort of declaration of starting, any timers for that. Because it's clear that I'd like to, continue to work with the Selectmen Board of Health to align the timing of the town meeting as best could fit the timing of the newly rescheduled election. So if it turns out that the special legislation that may give either you or me more latitude to reschedule does not happen by the 28th, my intention is to file a declaration under Chapter 39, Section 10A to postpone town meeting, and we'll deal with it from there. But I know this it's very important for you to put out that message because the election was tomorrow, but I'll be responding to some inquiries from townspeople and from reporters saying it's my intention that the town meeting will also be postponed, and I'll work with you, Board of Health, Fire, Police, EMT, and Schools to find a best date for us to reschedule.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we have both the chiefs here. I'm not sure if there's anything, not that you're required to, have anything you want to add at this time.
Just to let everyone know, we're here, we're open for business. We're taking some common sense approach to dealing what we have to deal with. On my side, it has been busy. We're seeing, an uptick with domestics and disturbances and certain things. We're obviously trying to stay safe. I've basically restricted the traffic officer position right now unless it's an egregious violation to try to limit contact. I've canceled all trainings. I've canceled all out-of-state travel that's not essential for police business. The fire chief procured a company to sanitize our cruisers. We're doing everything we can, wiping the cars down at the beginning of the shift, limiting the shift's contact at shift change with one another. And quite frankly, I'm concerned. And the other positive thing I'll say is no one appears to be ill at this time. And we're trying to keep it that way. We did have a very serious incident over the weekend where two of my officers were injured, so I'm down one return, but one is out, so I'm down 2 officers now, IOD. So the goal of keeping everyone healthy, and we have contingency plans in place if they're warranted. And I'd be more than happy, you know, even tomorrow, I'm sure I'll have more updates, but it's just a common sense approach to safety and public safety. I want the public to know they're safe. We're here, we are open for business, and we are preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think you hit on it there. We do have our meeting tomorrow night, which is publicly posted, and we'll sure have further updates there. So this was just again, quick
Hi. How are you?
updates. Thank you.
Patrick Purcell, Fire Chief. The only thing I could ask is if any of you are in contact with the delegation, just to impress upon them that we do need assistance starting to release the equipment from the Strategic National Stockpile that has been moved into Massachusetts, specifically face masks, N95s, gowns, and eye protection. We are already starting to run low in our traditional means of acquiring those. I just got notified now we're back ordered into May. So this is the equipment that protects the first responders. So we're already starting to use a lot of it, and the sooner that can be released, the better I'll feel, and the more my staff will be protected.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
that
We
message
will.
should be pushed forward. That would be helpful.
We'll definitely do that. Thank you. Christy, anything?
I just wanted to announce that today we closed all the municipal offices, including the school central office, to the public. We did stay open until noon today for people to obtain absentee ballots, understanding that this meeting was coming, but certainly since the election wasn't postponed yet. And so we are still available. We still have staff in all of our departments, and so we're available by phone and email.
So, I'm sorry, so if I want to get, and I guess this is going to come up, so if I want to get a ballot on Wednesday, how do I get it? Do I make an appointment with Wendy to come and pick it up from her? Well, it would be mailed. It would be done through the mail.
If
So
they request,
it would-
we'll mail it to them.
So just call and they'll,
The early voting, yep, the
Okay.
early voting is by mail. So
Okay.
you would request the form. I think we can get the form on the website so people can print it out. Send us the form back or mail it back to us.
Yeah,
then
anything that
we mail
can't be
them
done
out.
online or by mail,
Okay.
certainly reach out to departments and we'll try to
okay,
figure
so
that
just
out.
to
But
call you and
They
just,
can call our office too.
Okay.
Yep.
And we'll be, again, discussing all of this tomorrow night as well, with that posted meeting. This was an emergency posting because of the town election, so really about the town election. But just at FYI, we will talk in more depth tomorrow night at our meeting. Thank you. Anything else, Christy?
No.
Yes.
As soon as we have all the necessary documents signed and submitted, let's just make sure that we take the town meeting calendar item off of there. The election, I'm sorry, not town meeting, town election off of the calendar tomorrow. It's still out there as it should be, because we
Yep.
just voted, but
Perfect.
let's just make sure it comes down.
Thank you, Selectman Marshall. Okay, anything else? Okay, oops. Yep.
Thank you. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen and the town manager for managing this. I think you're making a really good decision. Just a follow-on and related issue. This building is closed, and all non-essential meetings of the town should be postponed or cannot be held in a public building at this point. Just to let you know, we have an advisory finance committee meeting scheduled tonight. We're going to take it into freeconferencecall.com. I think I'll post that number, and any member of the public who wants to dial in to hear that meeting can dial in. And so we'll just hold the meeting and discussion as scheduled tonight. Westborough TV has agreed that if we can get a recording of that meeting, that they'll post the recording at Westborough TV as they would have a videotaping of the meeting. So I consider this a non-essential meeting. It'll probably be our last meeting that we need before town meeting, which is now going to be delayed anyway. So I'd like just your feedback on that for general understanding and practice as we move forward. And then the second thing I have is the question on your meeting tomorrow night. So does that sound like an okay way to proceed?
Yeah, so as we talked about on Thursday, the governor issued an order granting municipalities relief from some requirements of the open meeting law. So there is opportunity to meet remotely, and as long as the public has some access. To be clear, though, these buildings will be open for meetings that we need to have. So we have an upcoming planning board meeting that they still continue to hold or plan to continue to hold. as well as ZBA and other things. So, but it would still be close to the public, so they can, like today, they can view it on Westborough TV.
Okay, so for instance, I'm here because I was here to pick up a ballot, so I came to your meeting today, but tomorrow night your meeting, me as a member of the public should watch it on Westborough TV and should not come out to attend the meeting.
That is correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Thank you for
So
that.
public meetings now, watch them on Westborough TV.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think we've chosen, we had so many folks concerned that they preferred that, anyway, we just made the choice as a non-essential meeting tonight that we would use
Actually,
another
This
technology.
brings up a point.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No, I just got it answered, that when you hold the Board of Selectmen meetings tomorrow night, me as a member of the public should not plan to come in to listen to the meetings. We should tune into Westborough TV.
That is correct.
Is there
Okay.
any
Yep.
way for the
Thank you.
public for tomorrow's meeting to, I mean, if they have questions, how will they, I guess we are not taking questions? It'll just
Correct.
be-
Yeah, I think at this point, I think that would be, they should reach out. I mean,
The open meeting law only requires that, that you allow people to view the work that you're doing as a board, so
Doesn't
view
allow you
your
to.
meetings. You are not required to take questions unless you have a public hearing.
right. And so I think we go above and beyond, as I think, personally, I think we should, but in these times, I think where safety matters, I think it will still be an open meeting where they can view. But at this point, from a question standpoint, it's really about the board doing business. It's not a public hearing, so it's not required to have public comments. However, with public hearings, as we just talked about with planning board or ZBA, they would have to have the mechanism
To
in
allow
place
it,
to allow
no.
for public input. Yes.
Ian, is there a way in which, logistically, it may be difficult to do this, but to Syed's point, is there a way in which we could receive questions after the fact and respond to them based on what was presented at the meeting for something that wasn't clear? I know we can't do sort of live, here's a question, that's not what I'm suggesting, but for people, so how would a resident who has a question after the board's meeting tomorrow night submit that question and then receive a response based on something that they heard?
Yeah, I would, I'll look to the town manager here to correct me if I go over. I think that they should submit it to through the website to the
Yep.
selectmen email. That goes to the selectmen as well as the town manager. And then we can work through it with a response, and whether it's an individual response will go out, or if we think it warrants us putting it out on the website for public,
Okay.
I would suggest we do that.
Okay,
Anything-
perhaps we could work with, and I'm happy to do that, work with Westborough TV at the beginning of the meeting to even have a screen up that says, if you have questions following this meeting, here's the email address to send the questions to, so it's there, so people that are watching can take a quick snapshot and they have it available. And you as chair could repeat that as we open and conclude the meeting.
Yeah, I think that's fine. We'll just coordinate with the town manager and figure out
Do
whether
you want me
it's
to, do you want me
or-
to contact?
You wanna reach out
Yep.
to
I'll
Karen?
do that. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Anything else for the board? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
A roll call vote.
Ashmi, yes?
Johnson, yes?
Edinburgh, yes?
Emery, yes.
Okay, so that's 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Please heed the warning, stay safe, and look out for your neighbors. Thank you.